Hey guys, Grant Jarvis did that video for me there last week, fishing in super shallow water down there on Sardis, and the water temp was really low, and he only lives about an hour and a half from me, and I've been sitting there thinking about it, and I decided that I'm going to answer these questions for me. We're going to answer them for you. We're going to go talk to him. We're going to find out why that he went there in the first place, what it was that made him want to go there, how he caught the fish, and how that we can replicate that on another lake. And that's going to be one of those tricks you can put in your trick sack and use anywhere in the country. I think I know why and how, but we're going to go out and find out for sure. If you have not, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. Now let's go talk some fishing. All right, guys, we are here. I told you I was on my way to come see Grant Jarvis. He made that video last week, and you were in really shallow water.
Shallow water.
About how many feet did you try to stay in?
We started out in 4 or 5 foot, and then worked our way to 7. We kind of went down there with a goal to stay away from the boats. And if you've ever fished Sardis, if you've ever fished a lot of lakes, especially this time of year, the drawdown's so bad. There's a few X's on Sardis.
How many feet low was it? Do you remember?
Our offset was minus 23.
23
So
foot.
23 foot. So
Okay.
From summer pool.
From summer pool.
So our offset was minus 23 foot. And if you've been to Sardis, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never been to Sardis, you'll see what I'm talking about if you ever go. But when you pull out of that chute there at Engineers Point, you're going to see 50, 75, or 100 boats in the water.
Okay.
And
is that the deep holes are all out there?
Well, the majority of those boats are going to be 12 to 16 foot of water. And I don't know who it was back in the past or whatever told us that move away from those boats. That's where, the fish aren't unpressured. The fish seem to scatter away from the majority of the boats. Not that the majority of the boats aren't catching fish there. But what we did, instead of getting in the pack and instead of going deeper, we learned in Mississippi they like shallow water. So when we see all those boats out there, or when we're going to a spot and there's boats in that 12 to 16 foot of water is mainly what you're going to fish at Sardis.
Yeah.
We just move inside of it. We
Closer
get inside of them, closer to the bank, and that's just what we focused on this time was the shallow water fish because, we fished at MCL, Magnolia Crappie Club, or something. We fished an early tournament down there, and we noticed some of the bigger names when we were fishing up there shallow, and we were like, "What are they doing all the way up there?" And
now,
I mean, this
if you're
is
wondering
February.
what he's referring to, it was in February?
It was in February.
Okay, well, the NCL, we did a couple of YouTube videos. What was it, last June?
Last June.
Me and Grant and Jason. And Gil was in it for a minute, I think, Grant's daddy. They were still fishing shallow then in June. So there's something to this. If they're there in the middle of the summer and they're there in the middle of the winter, they're in that shallow water. Now, when you were fishing, okay, the scenario is you got a big bunch of boats. You got the bank, and I'm assuming a flat that slow rises.
It's just a slow rising flat. You may have that 4 to 7 foot of water for 300 yards, before you run out of water. There it just depends on where you are. You'll hear the north side of the lake and the south side of the lake.
We're both family guys.
Yeah, that's my kid back there. I apologize. But you hear the north side, and this day everybody's on the south side because the wind was out of the south, and they're blocking wind. You don't want to have to contend with wind on Sardis at all.
No, absolutely not.
And like I said, they're just on a flat out there. They're off the channel, probably 200 or 300 yards, and it's just 12 to 16 foot of water.
Okay, we're getting somewhere here, guys. He's off the edge of the channel. I'm going to get these GPS coordinates before we're done.
So you're off. The majority of the boats are off the edge of the channel, and I don't know why it is, and I don't know why it's stuck in our heads. And I guess from fishing a tournament and watching the weigh-in from the people that we saw at Shallow, we figured out what they were doing up shallow was catching fish. Catching the bigger fish or the nicer
How
fish.
shallow do you go?
Let the fish tell me that. You'll let the fish tell you that.
So as long as your prop's not hitting the bottom, you don't care.
or as long as we're seeing fish.
Okay.
And if for some reason, like I said, when those boats get in that pack and all that, we don't like to play bumper boats. Number one,
yeah, very true.
If you've ever been in the boat with Jason, he's looking at the screen. He's not looking.
And he's gonna run
so
over.
I'm up there telling you got one to the right or you got one to the left. One's coming up on the right. You eliminate all that by getting out of the pack and start. And I'm not saying always go shallow. You don't have to always go shallow. You can go back deeper towards the channel or something in 25 foot of water.
Okay.
But that day we just targeted instead of messing with the boats. We knew for some reason that those fish at Sardis like to live shallow. I don't know why.
I think it's something with the
pressure was there.
Corps of Engineers Lake.
Yeah.
Most of the Corps of Engineers lakes you can find fish shallow just about any time of the year. It doesn't matter. Now I'm gonna elaborate on something he said. Now this is my personal belief, and this is what I do. If I'm trying to find more numbers, bigger schools, more fish everywhere, most time you're gonna sacrifice size for numbers. That's where I'll go back out to that deeper part up in the channel. The bigger fish, from what I found a lot of times, they're not going to be schooled up. They ain't going to be in a wolf pack. They're going to be singles out in that shallow flat. Now, when you all were out there, there wasn't no points or anything that you was looking at. You just found a flat.
That lake's drawn down so much now; it's basically just a body of water, and they weren't holding on stumps or anything like that. I think they were just unpressured fish, or the fish that felt pressured and moved out of that big array of boats, and just try to escape, some of the pressure.
Get over there and be left alone.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. I mean, there wasn't boats within a couple hundred yards of us, probably, when we were out there. And this is the main lake. I mean, we got, of course, if you've ever been to Sardis, another half a mile to the dead middle of the lake. And we're sitting up there beating the bank, watching, and the other guys were catching fish, but we just, like I said, to be left alone and really keep an eye too on what everybody else is doing. We just decided to move shallow. There wasn't or less wind the first day there because it was blowing out of the south, and beat the wind. We've got an aluminum boat.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that, I wanted to show people in that video that, you didn't have to have that $100,000 rig to go out there and catch crappie and catch nice crappie. And it don't matter the time of year. Now, we may not be able to go somewhere as fast or as quick. Boat control plays a bigger part when that wind is blowing, as you saw in one of those videos. But it's for us to go that shallow, that was just experience from what we've seen, what we saw others do, and getting away from the pack, and just being, like I said, still on the main lake there. We weren't hiding from anybody or anything, but we're just a couple hundred yards away from them. We're not a big move, and we fished 5 hours, I think, and had 19 fish. I'm not going to act like we just smoked them in 3 hours or something.
Yeah.
There are days where that's been done by guys I know.
Yeah.
But not necessarily in 4 foot of water. They may have been in 25.
If you go back and watch the videos, the last one posted last Wednesday, and you could tell that the bite was not stellar by any means. They were not chasing 7-8 feet and smoking that bait. We had some comments, and I deleted some of them. You'll always have a troll or two. Mm-hmm. But there was one guy on there that made a comment, and we're going to answer that for him real quick. I wasn't going to type a book when I replied to his comment, so we're going to answer it right here, right now. The comment was, well, I would have been catching them, casting a jig at them. I wouldn't have had the dead stick. Cold water crappie do not like chasing that. Cold water white crappie do not like chasing that bait. They want it as slow and still as possible. So they made a comment. They'd been throwing a 16th ounce jig, casting at them, and from what I could see, I don't think they would have chased it.
I don't. We in that, well, what you did not see in some of that video, some of those fish, would swing the bait over their heads, and they wouldn't even acknowledge its distance until it got right over their head, held it on them, and even when they turned up at it, you couldn't raise it up. You just had to.
Well, there
keep
wasn't
it
nowhere
there.
to go. You'd been out of the
Well,
water.
true, but I mean, you just had to keep it there, and soon when they turned up on it, they would eat it, after a couple seconds or so. But as far as I'd love to see if we can catch a fish spinning with a 6-foot rod in our hand, throwing a jig.
That's what you're gonna do.
100% of the time.
I love it.
Every
That's
time
my
we go
preferred
out,
way.
there's no, you're not going to beat it out of our hands.
Yeah.
Ever. And we had them in the boat that day, and we'll have them in the boat every time we go. We'll have our spinning rods, but after the first couple fish, even seeing them not react to it, just slowly falling over their head.
Yeah.
And then we putting it on them, and then turning up, and this is, people say, well, you had to hold it on forever. It feels like forever.
Yeah.
When you're holding that, and the wind's blowing, and you're working that trolling,
you're working around, and you're
trying to go right or left, and you're bringing it, and you got to hold it. I mean, that far above that fish.
Yeah.
It feels like forever, but once you held it on them, once you got it on them, and they acknowledged that jig, and they turned up. It was 3 or 4 seconds, probably before they hit it. It didn't take.
It's
10
like
minutes
they'll sit there and think about it and look at it and try to decide: is this fake? Is this real? Is this what I'm going to do? And then they'll just ease up and just latch on, and you'll feel a little bit of weight.
We didn't feel hardly any bites. You had, with people are going to cuss the live scope and everything else, but without live scope, half of those fish wouldn't have been caught because we were just going by the jig disappeared and the fish is up there. So
the only way that fish would have been caught would have been on a bobber or spider rigging at 0.01 miles an hour and hope to get lucky.
We caught them like that.
And
bunch of fun.
So I'm telling you, no, I ain't even gonna lie. No, I do not love spider rigging. I never liked it in the beginning. I hated it. I would just as soon watch paint dry.
Down there where you're at, I went to Reelfoot one time spider rigging, and I think we hung every stump.
I was gonna say you had a horrible day if you tried spider rigging.
Coming back, I said I'm done with this place until you invited me a couple years ago, and I'm like, you're not gonna beat me out of this place now.
Yeah, it's totally different lake, totally different tactic, totally different lake. Reelfoot is not one you want to go and spider rig at. You will lose about 9 million jig heads, hooks, sinkers. Might even break a few rods. You don't want a spider rig on Reelfoot. That's a whole nother ordeal there.
I guarantee it.
If water goes down 3 feet on Reelfoot, you can walk anywhere you want to on that 18,000 acre impoundment. It ain't an impoundment, natural lake. You can go anywhere you want to, jumping from stump to stump. Absolutely do not ever go down there and put your boat on plane, and don't ever go down there spider rigging. You're going to have a bad day, either one of them.
It will hurt. Now, there's people down there do it, and they know where to do it at. And that's the thing about them, spider rigging through them lily pad stems, stuff like that, with them black crappie and stuff. That's one thing, but
I just don't think impellers got a whole lot of sense.
I don't know that I have the patience for it anymore.
No, I couldn't do it.
That live scope made me so, action packed. You don't see a fish for 10 minutes or something. You're like, man, okay, we're done. We're going to the house. It's an adrenaline rush, and it's like, okay, I'm losing it. Where's the fish at?
And this is also the calmest I've ever saw Grant Jarvis in my life. Just
well, I'm at home, and my wife's back there, so I got it. If I want to go fishing Saturday, guaranteed.
All right, Grant. Tell these folks at home how they can catch fish anywhere in the country on a upland reservoir. Water's fluctuating up and down, just like the core lakes, like you did down there. Is it just going to be shallow flats? Is that going to be your main focus?
Man, I hate to pinpoint one particular spot, but we'll go back with Sardis. it fluctuates up and down and back and forth. The water's muddy. Where the majority of the boats were that we were talking about earlier, they were on a channel swing that swing close to the bank. By close to the bank, I mean
closest you can get since there's no water over there.
Yeah. Couple hundred yards. And that channel swing, a lot of them boats are right there in the middle of that. And I'm not for 1 second not going to say that them boats probably were more successful than we were. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say they weren't catching fish and we weren't.
Yeah.
But we were catching enough where we didn't care if they were or not.
There you go. And that's what it's about. Now, bait selection. What and why?
I go little as I can in winter. And it's just, we don't put minnows in the boat.
I don't either. Jig head size. Do you go down? Do you stay
1/32 usually. 1/32
super small
to 16.
Yeah.
I know guys that use a 64. Super small.
I'm gonna lose my patience with the 64s. I ain't gonna go there unless I have to.
In the video I showed, the uppercut, how I was rigging it with the tail
up and down to show a thinner profile.
So it'd be a smaller profile. We used hair jigs that day. But in the winter, I will start out until I see something different. I'll start out with probably a 32nd ounce head. That's 16th at the most.
Okay, now are those store bought or are those special made? Because I know a lot of guys that fish out on tour, and I fished against for years. They'll use a small jig head with a great big hook.
We get them special made, or I did, from Chris
Guthrie. Guthrie Tackle, that's the ones you all see me. Every video I put out for the last 5 years have been on Guthrie Tackle jig heads.
I went nuts with Chris probably 2 years ago. I don't even want to say when my wife went down the hall how much money I spent with Chris. I spend a lot of money with Chris, but
I think we're about $4 grand on the year with Chris right now.
I can't remember if I messaged him or texted him or called him. I think I messaged him on Facebook and ended up telling him, I said, I want a 1/32 chartreuse head with a number 1 hook. I want a 1/32 orange head.
He'll make anything
He'll
you
make
want.
And I got a red, and I wanted a red hook. I don't know why we did that. I wanted a red hook.
They were big there a couple years ago. And, everybody wanted red hooks.
She'd kill me. My wife would kill me. But I got the wire keepers. I love wire keepers. And like I said, I texted him, said, "Hey man, I want 2 dozen of these, 2 dozen of these, 2 dozen of these." He sent them to me. I said, "Wow, hey man, I want 3 dozen of these, 3 dozen of these, 3 dozen of these." And I got pill heads from him. I got round heads, minnow heads.
And he'll make anything you can dream of.
He will.
I had him make me 3/8 ounce heads on a number 2 light wire hook. Funny looking little dude.
Yeah,
I made a lot of money on that jig head right there. I made a lot of money on that jig head right there.
I think I actually got him to make me. Size did I get them? They were big. They were like audacious big.
Like ½ ounce or something?
With a 1/0 hook in it.
Yeah.
2/0 hook. I can't remember what I put in it. I did something stupid because we were fishing Grenada a lot. And man, them some guns would get in 30 foot of water at some time. But it's during the summer and they would chase. So we just wanted something to get out there and get down.
Yeah.
And we were smoking them on a. I mean, it looked like a gumball. I don't know.
Top of a sucker.
It looked like a gumball.
Yeah.
But he did a great job. Like I said, I ordered a couple because I didn't know. I've never ordered before, and I said, man, I want this with a red number 1 hook, red 1/0 hook, and a red number 2 hook in the 30 seconds or something. I got them, and I was like, I want 2 dozen of this and a red, and then give me a dozen of pill heads. Man, he does a great job.
Check him out if y'all ever get a chance. If you get out there this winter, don't overlook the shallow water. Grant, I appreciate your knowledge and your time. I'm going to thank you for the guys and gals watching at home.
I hope it helps.
So next time, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and we'll be back at you next week.